Welcome to Business Notes. I'm your host, Diane Bogino, and my special guest today is Chip Ellis, President and founder of the International Association of U.S. Government Contractors. Chip's passion is to see every small business owner become victorious in what they want and earn what they deserve by creating an elite nationwide community of 5,000 federal procurement-ready small businesses across all industries and set-aside categories. Over the last 12 years, CHIP has empowered over 1,600 small businesses to capture federal contracts without bidding, without all the mind-numbing red tape, and without needing to hire expensive government consultants or misuse the GSA. CHIP has held CEO positions throughout Asia, Europe, South America, Africa, and the USA. He speaks Thai and graduated from the University of Michigan's Ross School of Business Administration. Now here's Chip to share his secrets on how you can procure lucrative government contracts. Chip, welcome to Business Notes, and thank you for being on the show today.
Well, thanks for having me, Diane. I appreciate it.
It's good to have you on here because this is really an interesting topic for small business owners. So, is federal contracting only for big companies, or how do small companies get into it? What size do you have to be? What revenue do you have to make? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, let me share with you 3 laws. I promise your audience won't have to drink Cuban coffee. I won't bore you with these things, but there's 3 laws that favor small businesses with federal contracting. And the first one is that every single federal contract, 100%, that are $150,000 or less per year is set aside for small companies. That's the first law. And the second law is they spend $600 billion every year, Diane. I don't even know how many zeros that is, but every year they spend that, and 80% of it, or about $482 billion, is set aside for small companies. And here's the third law, is that when a big company does get a contract, 31.7% of the big guy's contract has to be outsourced to a small company. So in fact, so many folks think that it's a big guy game, when really it's all the laws are for small companies.
And those are like laws on the books.
Laws on the books.
Wow.
The contracts are for us.
Good. Okay. So how about a startup? Could they get a federal contract?
We get this all the time, not just startups, but people think, well, to be qualified, don't I have to be a certain revenue, or don't I have to be in business a certain number of years, or don't I have to have a certain number of employees? And the good news is the federal government doesn't have enough small companies. They just don't have enough. They have all the big guys they want. So they've come up with these laws in different ways. They need small companies. So yes, you could literally be a startup, no revenue, no employees, work at home even before COVID, and get federal contracts.
So what are the best industries sought after by the federal government? Like, for example, could my company get a contract?
That's a really great question. They literally buy thousands of different products and services, but we found there's about 40 industries that do best with federal contracting. And we could break those down into 3 big categories. One big category is anything to do with building, maintenance, repair, and operation. Anything to do with, that's from janitorial service company cleaning the floors to the roofer, the air conditioning maintenance guy. Anything to do with building, maintenance, repair, and operation of a building is fantastic. The construction folks, now not new build, but remodeling, as part of the stimulus package, they're going to remodel 361,000 buildings as part of the stimulus package. It's just crazy. So if you're in any one of those industries, from landscaping to remodeling, fantastic. That's huge category. Second is IT. Huge. They spend the most on IT, billions upon billions of dollars on IT. And I know that's a broad category for your listeners, but it's everything from cell phones to internet service to software, any category of IT, and I'll throw telecom in there in that same bucket. anything to do with IT telecom is just fantastic. And the third big category is management consulting. So they have over 5 million employees. I know we always grab our wallet when we say that. They have 5 million employees. And so management consulting, staffing services, I would throw into the management consulting area. You know, they're constantly hiring and needing, you know, staffing help. And they just need to, their people need to do more with, you know, the people they need to improve, just like any business. So any type of management consulting is fantastic. Those are the three big categories.
Gee, I'm surprised you're suggesting our government needs management help.
Can you imagine?
Moving right along.
Yes.
What are no bid contracts? You know, how would somebody obtain one of those? How do you get paid for those?
There's two ways that the federal government awards contracts. And like city, county, state, school board, they put out bids, as you can imagine. But for every one that the federal government puts out to a competitive bid, 1,000 they put out on a no bid process. And the reason is kind of simple. Remember, I shared with you those laws where they basically have to use a small company. Here's the problem. A lot of small companies, not your listeners, of course, but a lot of small companies don't do what they say, do they? Right? And so here, picture this poor buyer. They give it to the small company because they have to. The law says they had to award it to the small company. Small company doesn't do a good job. And when that happens, the buyer, the federal contractor who awarded the contract, can get fired from their job. Because in federal contracting, kind of again comparing it to city, county, state, school board, they're under no obligation to go with the low bid. The federal buyer needs to pick a good company. So if they pick a small business and the small business doesn't show up and do a good job, yes, the small business is out of federal contracting, but the buyer can lose their job.
Wow.
So heads rolled last year, but you know, by the way, they get fired a second way. So the first way is they've got to award the contract to a good company. But if they don't have enough small business check marks, they can also get fired. And heads rolled last year. Listen to this. Remember I shared with you every contract under 150,000 has to go to a small company. It's the law, right? Last year, that represented 40 million contracts set aside for small companies. We only received about 7 million. And of the $600 billion, 480 some billion set aside for us, we only received about 100 billion. We left $300 billion on the table. Why? Because you're like, well, wait a second, Chip, you said that the law says they got to give it to us small guys. Why did it all go to big companies? Here's why. If a small business doesn't show up, or if they don't show up properly, then the law says they can give it to a big company. And most of the time it's we don't show up. Only 2% of small companies in the United States that should and could sell to the federal government have bothered to register, which takes about an hour, and there's no registration fee. It's free. 2%. Just crazy.
Yeah.
So the second way they make awards, so that's on the bid side. On the no bid side, and the reason for every one they bid 1,000 they don't, they have a no bid way to give out contracts. And no bid is, and the reason it's 1,000 are given out that way is they don't need to ever, like they don't get fired if they award a no bid. So if they go out to a competitive bid on a website and you win and you don't do a good job, the buyer can get fired. If they award you a no bid contract and you don't do a good job, yes, you're out of federal contracting, but the buyer doesn't lose their job. So what would you do? They can put it out to a competitive bid and risk their job, or they can give a no bid contract and not risk their job. And that's why no bids are so interesting for us to go after.
So that's why I wouldn't have to bid on a federal contract then. Is that right?
That's right. That's right. Now, these are only for us small businesses. Remember, they have all the big companies they need. So the small bid, which are also sometimes called test or sole source contracts, they're just for us small folks. And by the way, Diane, no bid means no competition. So this is very, very interesting. The law says that the federal buyer, they can't call three, let's suppose the post office, I don't know, needs a landscaper. The post office can't call in 3 landscapers and have each landscaper give a proposal and then pick one. That's against the law. The law says if the federal buyer wants competition, they have to bid it fair and square. The problem is they don't want to bid it because they risk their job when they bid. So instead, it's a first right of refusal. They can call in 1 landscaper and it's fixed price. They'll say, Diane, we've got exactly $132,615.18 to do the landscaping here at the post office this year. They can call in 1 landscaper. So you look at it. If you're that landscaper, you would look at the job like you would, and you say yes or no. You have a first right. Can you? And by the way, that price is not negotiable. So if you need 150 grand, you got to walk. You with me? It's in stone because they have use it or lose it budgets, and they're just not allowed. The law says they can't, all these laws, the law says you can't go a penny over the budget. So they give you this fixed price, and either you can do it or you can't. If you can, it's your contract. And obviously if you say, hey, it doesn't fit, then they can call in another small business. But what they can't do is have competition, which is really cool.
Interesting. So Chip, what's the main difference between, city, county, state, and federal contracts? What's the easiest one to obtain and why?
Great question. What we've found, our experience is this: it's almost inverse. Like the smaller the government entity, the harder it is to do business for them. Like, think about it. If you go after your little city, you better know the mayor, the mayor's mistress, the mayor's wife. Like, you got to know everybody. Like, it's very difficult. And to go after, say, $100,000 contract from a city, it's important money for the city. And to top it all off, city, county, state, and school boards don't print their own money. They rely on tax. So in today's environment, for example, where city, county, state, school boards are not collecting the tax money that they did pre-COVID, we're actually recommending that people shy away from city, county, state, school board, because you might get what you wish for and get a contract and then get slow paid. Back in 2008, in the last recession, we had one of our clients, they were a paving contractor. They got a $2 million contract. They were just dancing in the streets, and they got paid a year later. They came within an inch of going out of business because, of course, they had to pay their suppliers and they couldn't do it. So we shy away, I think, from city, county, state, school board right now, where the federal government, $100,000 contract for the Fed, like they're spending $600 billion. Like they waste more coffee than that every day. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and because of these no bid contracts, now, by the way, city, county, state, school board do use the no bid process, but most of their contracts are put out by bid, and it's usually the low bid, right? It's usually kind of a low bid situation where, you have to dot your I's, cross your T, submit a stupid low price and hope you win. With the federal government, because these no bid contracts are fixed price, most of the time you're going to make more money with a federal contract than you would on an apple to apple commercial deal, because that fixed price. You know exactly what you're going to make. You're not trying to bid. You're not trying to figure out what price. You're not having your customer say, sharpen your pencil and can you give me a better deal? None of that. Hey, here's the price we have. Here's the work. Can you do it? Yes or no? And so we found that our clients are, getting these federal contracts can be easier. Now, it's not easy. Let's not pretend, but it can be easier than even getting commercial business.
Yes. Now, Chip, I want to be clear with my audience. Your organization teaches people how to procure these contracts, but you don't actually go out and procure them for them, and you don't do any marketing for them, correct?
That's correct. So we do two things for our clients very quickly. Is number one, the paperwork is daunting. I'm sure a lot of folks in the audience today, they may have looked at federal contract. Wait a second, I don't want to deal with all that painful paperwork. I just don't need that hassle. And so what we do is we do all the registrations and the paperwork. It takes us 30 days to do that. So imagine if you're trying to do it yourself. Yes, it's free to do. You can do it yourself. But we do that for our clients so that the registrations are perfect, the paperwork is done, and they don't have to deal with that. And then the second thing we do for our clients is we introduce them to the federal decision makers who buy what they sell. So we play matchmaker, if you will, and because it can be daunting to try to find the right person to talk to. Remember, there's 5 million employees in there. Like, who do I speak to at the post office, and who do I speak to at the Army or the FBI? And so we introduce them to the right people. And the third thing we do is we just make sure we have best practices to make sure that when they're speaking, when they are selling, we do have a federal sales training component where we show them a best practice. We use the Sandler sales training methodology, and we've modified that for federal contracting. So when they are talking to the federal buyers, they build the relationship in the right way and that kind of thing. So that's the three big things we do for our clients. But they have to do their own selling, of course.
Yes, right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Been there, done that, trying to do that paperwork and connect with the right person. That's difficult. Yeah. Chip, I watched another interview you did, and your passion for what you do was just so obvious. What got you started into this?
As you mentioned, I've had like 10 startups, everybody. So if you see me twitching here a little bit, you know why. And here's what I found. I had 3 amazing successful companies. I grew one company to like over 25 million, another company from 0 to 15 million. And I had my biggest success was I grew a company from 0 to over 150 million in just 3 years, and sold that company to IBM. And I retired, and I was young, and my son went to school, and I didn't have anybody to play with. And so the U.S. Chamber of Commerce in Washington, D.C., the largest chamber, now they're not government, they're the largest chamber in the world. And they had a program to teach small businesses how to get no-bid federal contracts. So they reached out to me in my retirement. I had used the chamber in different businesses I own. And they said, Chip, will you come administer this program for us? And I'm like, really? You can get no-bid contracts? I had never heard of that. This was back in 2006. And so they said yes. And so for 2 years, I was an employee. I was the executive director of the U.S. Chamber, and we just helped thousands of small businesses get these no-bid contracts. And then in 2008, February of 2008, to be precise, Tom Donahue, still the president of the U.S. Chamber, came to me. He said, listen, the board of directors has decided, since we're the largest lobbyists in the world, we're not going to do this anymore. This is one of the few training programs we do, and we're just not going to present it anymore. And I'm like, Tom, you got to be joking me. It was 2008. Some of your listeners remember, like, the sky was falling, right? The last recession we were in. And I'm saying, Tom, listen, I'm retired. I've sold my company. This is my give back. Can I buy the program from the chamber? And to show you the heart of the chamber, they said, if you'll keep teaching small companies how to get these no-bid federal contracts, we'll sell you the program for $1. So back in 2008, I left the chamber and set up the International Association of U.S. Government Contractors. I couldn't pick a name you can say in one breath, right? I had to go with that. In fact, we give like all kinds of discounts if you can say our initials, IAUSGC, fast 3 times. So we started it, and And it was so important. And the reason, though, I was so excited about federal contracting, yes, for 2 years, it had been fantastic helping companies grow. But I had these 3 big successes, as I mentioned, but I also had 4 miserable failures. And Diane, everyone told me that if I had enough money and the right team, you couldn't fail. And, you know, I've got the University of Michigan business degree, and I'm thinking I'm all that. And I had 4 miserable failures, and I had all the money in the world. I had an amazing team, and I still failed. So I literally went on a quest, like, okay, yes, of course, money and your team is important. Let's not pretend. But what's the number one factor? And so I ran across a study that Harvard did, 25-year study, and they showed that all of us, every listener out there, I don't care if you're a startup, you've been in business 10 years, you're a Fortune 500 company, whatever, we're all on one of 3 business paths. And the first business path, they coined the snail trail, 55% were on it, Diane. And this business path had no giant clients. So what's a giant client? It's a customer that gives you 20 times the profit of a regular client. If you have no giant clients, and I had one of my failures, had none, you know, don't shoot the messenger here, but if you don't have any giant clients, 100% you're going out of business. 100%, not even 99. So I found that interesting. The second business path we could be on, about 33% of us are on it. They coined the shooting star path. Like I had 3 of these. And this is where you have one giant client, one customer giving you 20 times the profits. Like I got IBM. Oh man, guys, like life was so good. Got the new Corvette convertible, got the new house. And then like 18 months into it, they get a new VP of sales and marketing. They want somebody else. By the way, guy, I had 3,000 employees in Denver. And we're out of business within a few months, just gone out of business. The shootings, 3 of those. So now you really know why I twitch. And the third business path, they coined the elephant herder path. And this is, you've probably already guessed, where you have 2 or more giant clients, 2 or more customers giving you 20 times the profits. And that business path, every study shows, is literally the only business path that leads to long-term success and prosperity. And so it begs the question, like, what's the fastest, easiest, lowest cost way to get 2 giant clients into my portfolio? So we've talked about city, county, state, right? You can go after city, those are giant clients, but they're broke. Like, don't go after them. They're broke right now, aren't they? You can go after, I speak Thai. I spent 3 years in Thailand because I did a $70 million project in Thailand. But yeah, that was all good. But it took, goodness, $4 million. It took 3 years of my life. I had to learn to speak Thai, which does me a lot of good here in South Carolina, where I am now. So it's just not a practical market to go after to get giant clients. So it leaves two categories really to go after. Go after Fortune 500 clients, like I did with IBM, or you can go after the 4,600 agencies of the federal government. I mean, think about it. If you get the FBI and you get the post office, you got 2 giant clients. And what I loved about it was, like, when you go after IBM, it took like 3 years of my life and 300 grand. And when I finally got them, if I knew, because I didn't know at the time to go after and get another giant, but let's say I picked Office Depot, I would have had to start all over, because to get IBM, I had to know their culture. I had to know who made the sale, who influenced the sale, how did they budget, like everything about IBM. So if I was going to go after it, and it took, like I said, it took me 3 years. And if I went after Office Depot, I'd have to start all over and learn their culture and how they do it. And so with the federal government, folks, this is why I love it. It's the fastest, easiest, lowest cost way to get 2 giants, because yes, you have to learn how to do it, right? You got to learn how they budget and who makes a sale, and that takes work. But once you learn how to get one agency, let's say you get business from the post office, you get all 4,600 agencies in precisely the same way. It's the same laws. It's the same everything. So you make that investment in time and money to learn how to do it. And then boom, now you get 2 giant clients, you get on that elephant herder path. And now you won't just survive, but you can thrive in all kinds of climates. So my passion, to long-winded answer to your question, Diane, the reason I did it was if it was faster and easier to get Fortune 500 companies or city, county, state, school board, if there was a market that you could get 2 giant clients faster and easier than the federal government, I would be teaching that. So my passion is around helping our customers get 2 giant clients. You get 2 federal agencies or more. Now you're on that elephant herder path. Now you're actually going to stay in business and make some serious money. And that's why I'm so excited about this.
Wow. I feel like you should send me an invoice for the lessons I just learned. You have brought an important message to small businesses. There's no doubt about that, Chip. I appreciate your time today, and I appreciate you sharing the information you brought to the audience today. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Well, thanks so much for we're crusading, Diane, to get small businesses into this market. So thank you for allowing us to get the message out that there's money to be had. There's money we're leaving on the table. And if you're a small business, and by the way, if you're interested in seeing if you're one of the top 40 industries, if you go to our website, fedprofits.com, we've got a tag there with the top 40 industries so you can see if this might make sense for you. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, great. I'll be right over there right after the show. Thanks again. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching Business Notes. We've been speaking with Chip Ellis, President and founder of the International Association of U.S. Contractors. I'm your host, Diane Bogino, bringing you business ideas you can bank on.